Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene. Hello, Zoom friends. We're glad you're with us today. My name is Joanna Alexander, and my pronouns she and her. If you want a visual cue, I have on a yellow hat and a teal headband, ready to work. I hope it inspires you to perspire along me. I see many of you are in your work clothes. Happy Labor Day to everyone. Oh, and I'm the worship associate for the day. Labor Day, happy Labor Day. We're here. They're at the beach in the mountains, but we're here. Thank you for being here as we celebrate the strength of working people when we unite for justice, equity, and peace. Information about today's service can be found in our handy guide to Sunday worship. Greeters like Christina have them. If you need one, raise your hand if you'd like one. Anybody? Okay. As we begin our service this morning, I am borrowing the words, beautiful words of Adam Slate, a Unitarian seminarian whom I met in Paris in May. Let us strive to be a radically inclusive community dedicated to love and justice. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your life situation, whatever you believe or don't believe, whatever the color of your skin, your age, your physical, mental, or emotional abilities or limitations, wherever you are, whether you are filled with sadness or overflowing with joy, whether you are eager to engage with others or need time to just be, whether you have brought your best self this morning or your struggling self, whether you come with an open heart or feel closed up because the wounds you carry, there is a place for you here. I'm going to call up Desmond to light the chalice as we enter a time of worship by lighting this chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And these words are also inspired by the same Adam Slate. When the great mosaic of humanity is treated with respect and dignity, when no person is threatened by hunger or war, when we have extended hospitality to the stranger and tended to the sick, when equity and justice reign everywhere, then we shall all be free. You got it?
There's a lighter right there.
And it didn't work. It's too hard. Here we go. We light this flame to hold that moment in our spirit and in our minds until we can make it real, when we all shall all be free. And now let's say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world. This will be no work to read this poem by Khalil Gibran on work. Then a plowman said, "Speak to us of work." And he answered, saying, "You work that you may keep pace with the earth and the soul of the earth. When you work, you are a flute through whose heart the whispering of the hours turns to music. Which of you would be a reed, dumb and silent, when all else sings together in unison? Always you have been told that work is a curse and labor a misfortune. But I say to you that when you work, you fulfill a part of earth's furthest dream, assigned to you when the dream was born. And in keeping yourself with labor, you are in truth loving the earth. And to love life through labor is to be intimate with life's inmost secret. Oh, there's one more paragraph. I'm having a day. Okay. And what is it to work with love? It is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart, even as if your beloved were to wear that cloth. It is to build a house with affection, even as your beloved were to dwell in that house. It is to sow seeds with tenderness and reap the harvest with joy, even as if your beloved were to eat the fruit. It is to charge all things you fashion with the breath of your own spirit, and to know that all the blessed dead are standing about you and watching. Work is love made visible.
Hi. My name is Barbara Kellogg, and my pronouns are she and her. I have short gray hair and glasses, and I'm wearing a green t-shirt that asks, what does labor want? And the answer is on the back. It says, we want more schools and less jails, more books and less guns, more justice and less revenge. We want more opportunities to cultivate our better nature. That was said by Samuel Gompers, who was the first president of the American Federation of Labor back in 1893. Like then, labor is again coming into its own. Overall favorability has risen to 70%, and 9 out of 10 workers under 30 support unions. On this Labor Sunday, I have been asked to share some personal reflections of my time in the labor movement, a movement I love and have been part of for the last 40 years. I have had the opportunity to experience the transformation of my union, SEIU, from a moribund, conservative, tradition-bound institution run by old white guys to a visionary, muscular, progressive movement run by and for young rank-and-file workers. But I certainly wasn't thinking much about unions when I entered the workforce in 1963. I wanted to earn a little money before I started college, so I took a job as a typist at an insurance company. The pay and benefits were okay, but the working conditions were awful. And the job consisted of typing the same form letter over and over all day long. Not long after I started, the first black woman was hired into our unit, but sadly, she did not last long. One day, she came into work and found a supervisor sitting at her desk. She was told she was no longer needed and escorted out of the building. Shamefully, not one of us said a word. We all watched them humiliate her and went back to work. I still feel shame for that moral failure on my part. If she'd only had a union. Shortly thereafter, I quit that job and started college. The next few years, I went to class, I worked as a work-study student, I protested the war in Vietnam, fell in love, and in 1969, my partner and I left Detroit for the West Coast. We landed in California at a time when public employees had just won the right to unionize. In 1971, my husband was hired by SEIU to organize social workers. But my first union experience came in 1980. I was working at UC Berkeley when the California legislature passed the Higher Education Collective Bargaining Act. Like many workers, I discovered that if I wanted to be in a union, I had to help make it happen. So I jumped in as a member organizer, and eventually we won a major victory for thousands of workers throughout the UC system. It was one of the most powerful, transformative, joyful, and addictive experiences that I've ever had. I was offered a job with SEIU, and 40 plus years later, I retired in 2019. I loved my job. It was an honor to work with so many brave and amazing people. home care workers fighting for health insurance and a living wage, nursing home workers campaigning for fair staffing, child support workers lobbying for funding for foster kids, and full-time state workers willing to strike to protect part-time workers' health insurance benefits. Time flew by, and now I've retired, and many of my union friends don't understand why I come to church. And I tell them it's because we're both part of the same solution. I believe we share the same values and the dreams of a more just world. But Susan Frederick Gray, past president of the UUA, said it better. In 2022, she wrote, "The UUA unequivocally stands with the labor resurgence happening in workplaces across our country. As Unitarian Universalists, we have long believed that challenging inequality locally and globally for workers is a moral imperative. Our commitment to justice, equity, and compassion calls us to join in solidarity with people fighting for living wages, health care, and a fairer economy. Today, we are witnessing a growing labor movement built by and for working-class people that is pushing back against a system of capitalism that concentrates wealth into the hands of the few. It is a movement coming alive from the bravery and brilliance of Black, Indigenous, people of color, women, LGBTQIA+, undocumented immigrants, and poor and disabled communities. To all who believe in justice and democracy in our government, our communities, and in our workplaces, we join you in solidarity." On this Labor Sunday, I invite our congregation to explore what that solidarity could look like here at UUCE. Support striking workers and happy Labor Day.
Earlier, we heard the words of Khalil Gibran. Always you have been told that work is a curse and labor a misfortune. I imagine that one source of this old adage is Genesis, the first book of the Hebrew Bible. After disobeying God's rules about what to eat and what not to eat in the garden, God says to Adam and Chava, "Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil and by the sweat of your brow, you will eat your food until you return to the ground." But you know, work was not intended to be a curse or a misfortune. Before the fall, there was already work, an inspired, collaborative work of creation and delight where God and the earth and humanity played and worked together. Yes, there is an aspect of work that feels like toil and labor. And there is an aspect of work that is fundamental to our very nature, work that allows us to keep pace with the soul of the earth. For, as the poet says, "For the pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real." On this Labor Day Sunday, we honor all kinds of work, paid work, unpaid work, the work that we love, and the work that just simply must be done. We especially honor the workers who gather their power and their strength to secure a better future, not only for themselves and their family, but for all. Now, as Barbara said, even though union membership is smaller now, kind of around 10%, unions have been increasingly viewed in a very positive light, enjoying the highest favorability rating in almost 60 years. When workers unite Everyone benefits, not just the union members. Wages increase for the union, but it also spills over to non-union workers. Women and Black workers in particular gain greater access to health benefits and retirement benefits. Wage gaps between white workers and workers of color narrows. The children of union parents experience greater economic mobility, and union members don't care only about wages and benefits. They care about all the things that impact life. And that's why you see unions calling for ceasefire in Gaza and measures to end gun violence. We need the solidarity of the labor movement joining with the peace movement, joining with racial justice warriors, joining with LGBTQ activists and environmentalists, and everyone who holds a vision of a just, equitable, and peaceful world. Unfortunately, some very powerful people hold a different vision. One where labor is weak and the rich get richer. This summer, workers in Florida's public sector started to see the first effects of new anti-union laws that were passed last year. Now, anti-union laws are nothing new. One study suggests that about 60 million people would like to join a union, but decades of union-weakening legislation have limited their ability to join for a variety of reasons. In Florida, today, 54 unions have lost their certification because of these anti-union laws, leaving more than 60,000 workers without representation. Other red states are surely paying attention, and surely seeing this as an encouraging sign. The November elections will, of course, be crucial to ensuring the strength of unions. But in addition to voting, we must also take some time to remember the rich history of the labor movement in this country, as well as the current struggles. Not only have they pushed to make the workplace safer and more equitable, they also ensure the dignity and humanity that is inherent in work itself. Did you know that right after the Revolutionary War, the standard work hours then was 12 hours? That was the standard work day. From sunup to sundown, that was the norm. Well, carpenters in Philadelphia wanted a life that was more than just toiling. And so they organized America's first citywide general strike, and they were the first to call for an 8-hour workday. 50 years later, in 1886, the deadly Haymarket incident in Chicago just magnified this call. 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, and 8 hours for what we will. Fast forward another 50 years or so, and we finally get our 8-hour workday. And also, around that same time, we find a little girl named Dorothy Lee Bolden in Atlanta, Georgia. Her mother was a domestic worker in Atlanta, and young Dorothy helped her mom out wherever she could. Eventually, Dorothy found work doing the same thing, getting up at 4 a.m. so that she could leave the house by 6, so that she could take the bus and be on the job by 8. After working 8 hours at someone else's house, she reverses that commute to be home by 6 o'clock, where Dorothy would be doing the same work over again, but now for her own family. At the beginning of her career, Dorothy Bolden earned as little as $7 a week. And domestic workers were not recognized as part of the labor force.
Now, Dorothy's neighbor just happened to be none other than the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And one day she went over there to ask for help to try to organize the domestic workers. And Dr. King said, "You can do it." And yes, she could, and yes, she did. In those days, the bus was a safe space for women like Dorothy to share concerns, stories of abuse, and learn about their rights. And so after watching news reports of Rosa Parks and what great justice work could be done using the bus in Montgomery, Dorothy was inspired to ride every single bus line in the city and spoke to hundreds of domestic workers. In 1968, Dorothy Bolden founded and led the National Domestic Workers Union of America. And as a result, Atlanta's domestic workers were empowered to negotiate for better wages and better working conditions. There are so many stories like Dorothy's from the past, and there are so many stories like that about the present, from Starbucks to Subway, from the University of Oregon Student Workers Union and the United Airlines flight attendants. Workers are coming together to say, yes, we can, and yes, we will. So I'm going to leave you with 3 actions that you can do if you want to support workers. First is vote, obviously. We have just set up a table out in the South Foyer. It's the blue table for UU the vote. And in the coming weeks and months, you're going to find more activity out there. Number 2, pay attention to the news when it comes to labor and unions. Pay attention with curiosity about the thoughts that rise in your mind and get curious about where those thoughts come from. And then number 3, I want to invite you to go to the Lane County History Museum because they have an exhibit right now called the Farm Workers' Rights Movement exhibit, and admission is free. Now, related to that, if you are able, there is a benefit concert coming up for, is it called Picun? Picun? PCUN, which is Oregon's Farm Workers Union. And there's a benefit concert for them at the History Museum on October the 10th. And I'll make sure to put up flyers and send out announcements for you. The last time that we all gathered and went over to the museum for the Black History exhibit, I think we outnumbered all the other guests in that space. So I hope that a bunch of us can go to that October 10th event. As I listen to millennials and Gen Z, I hear a desire to live a full, rich life rather than to amass wealth. I hear them say that they want to take care of the earth and each other rather than to work for profit. More and more people are saying that they want a better future for everyone, not just for themselves. And a better future can only be secured when we work collectively toward that vision of beloved community. May it be ever so. Amen. No matter your job, the work of your hands help to bring more love into this world, more peace into this world. And so today we would like to offer you a hand blessing. The 4 of us are going to stand here, and if you want to come up and receive a blessing, we're going to just put a little bit of water in your hands for that blessing. And so please do come up as you are willing and able.
And now, as we extinguish this chalice, we will say together, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, nor the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And now, as you go, may you work with love, and may you keep pace with the soul of the earth. Go in love, my friends. Go in peace.